Francis passes away at 88. Russian forces launch mass drone attack on Ukrainian city. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. My name is Daryl Baptist and you are watching World Today. From the Vatican to the world, Catholics are spending their Easter Monday saying goodbye to their spiritual leader, Pope Francis. His death comes at one of the most important times of the year for followers of the Roman Catholic Church, and less than 24 hours after the ailing Pope addressed worshippers in St. Peter's Square on Easter Sunday. World leaders from US President Donald Trump to Russian leader Vladimir Putin paid tribute to the Pope's moral and spiritual leadership. Prayers were held around the world, and Trump was among the first leaders to announce that they would attend the Pope's funeral.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard, he loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum paid tribute to Pope Francis on Monday, describing him as a humanist, a man who was always close to the most humble, to the poor.
Papa Francisco fue un humanista, un hombre que estuvo cerca siempre del más humilde, de los pobres. Todavía el día de ayer su mensaje fue por la paz, así que es una pérdida dolorosa. Que en paz descanse. Nuestro abrazo y cariño a todo el mundo y en particular a las y los católicos de México.
Pope Francis died of a stroke, the Vatican announced hours after the death on Monday of the 88-year-old reformer, who inspired devotion but riled traditionalists during 12 years leading the Catholic Church. The Argentine pontiff died at his Santa Marta residence in the Vatican almost a month after leaving hospital, following 5 weeks battling double pneumonia. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim described Pope Francis, the head of the Roman Catholic Church who passed away yesterday, will be remembered not only as the first Pope from the Global South, but as a moral voice of compassion, humility and justice in a turbulent world. On his Facebook account, the Prime Minister elaborated that Pope Francis's commitment to interfaith understanding, environmental stewardship and the dignity of the marginalized resonated far beyond the Catholic Church. Datuk Sri Anwar emphasized Pope Francis was a steadfast advocate for peace, and his efforts to build bridges across faiths and cultures earned the respect of many, including the Muslim world. He stressed that Pope Francis spoke with moral clarity on the immense suffering in Gaza, reminding the world that we must show the same compassion to all victims of violence, wherever they may be. The Prime Minister also added the Pope also championed the dignity of migrants and refugees, urging the international community to respond to their plight with humanity and conscience. Russian forces have launched a mass overnight drone attack on residential areas of Ukraine's Black Sea port of Odessa. Local officials said the assault triggered many fires and damaged many apartments. Regional Governor Ole Kiper announced emergency crews had been dispatched to the affected areas and information on casualties was being clarified. Video footage released by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine in the Odessa region showed emergency personnel driving to the scene and firefighters putting out fires at a building after the attack. Odessa, with its 3 ports, has been a frequent target of Russian attacks in the more than 3-year-old conflict with Russia. Fighting in Ukraine has resumed following the expiration of Easter ceasefire. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Moscow was open to any peace initiatives and expected similar attitudes from Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky recently said Kyiv is proposing a 30-day ceasefire on long-range drone and missile strikes against civilian infrastructure. Zelensky's proposal falls on Easter Sunday amid a so-called Easter truce initiated on the 19th of April by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Despite Putin's promise to halt all combat operations over the holiday weekend, Moscow reportedly violated the temporary ceasefire multiple times. While Putin plans to let the truce expire at midnight on the 21st of April, Zelensky urged Russia to adopt a ban on aerial attacks on civilian targets. In a social media post, Zelensky criticized Russia for failing to respond for 39 days to Ukraine's earlier proposal of an unconditional 30-day comprehensive ceasefire. He stated that if Russia now agrees to a full ceasefire, Ukraine will respond in kind. Ukraine will act as Russia acts. The Ukrainian president emphasized that a longer ceasefire period could create a real opportunity for peace. However, he noted that Russian attacks continue on some front lines and Ukrainian forces remain on alert, responding to every Russian shelling with equal force. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday emphasized Moscow would analyze a proposal by Ukraine to halt airstrikes on civilian infrastructure, but accused Kyiv of using such sites for military purposes. Currently, each side has accused the other of thousands of violations of the ceasefire. In rare comments on a specific Russian strike, he claimed Ukraine had been using a university building in Sumy for a military awards ceremony on the 13th of April, when two Russian ballistic missiles hit the city center, killing at least 35 people.
Но тем не менее, почти 5000 нарушений было, 4900. Из них 6 атак и 90 попыток ударов БПЛА самолетного типа. 100 тысяч, по-моему, 400 артобстрелов. Но в целом все-таки снижение активности имело место. Мы это приветствуем и готовы посмотреть на будущее.
Late Monday, Zelensky called on Russia to give a clear answer to the ceasefire proposal. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump last month tabled a proposal for a full and unconditional ceasefire, which Ukraine accepted, but Putin rebuffed. Asked about Trump's remarks on Monday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow hopes US efforts will yield results, but declined to comment on the timeline of negotiations. Harvard sued U.S. President Donald Trump's administration on Monday in a sharp escalation of the fight between the prestigious university and the Republican, who has threatened its funding and sought to impose outside political supervision. Trump has sought to bring several prestigious universities to heel over claims they tolerated campus anti-Semitism, threatening their budgets, tax-exempt status, and the enrollment of foreign students. The Ivy League university said in a lawsuit filed in a Massachusetts federal court, said the government's actions flout not just the First Amendment, but also federal laws and regulations. Trump is furious at Harvard for rejecting government supervision of its admissions, hiring practices, and political slant, and last week ordered the freezing of $2.2 billion in federal funding to the institution. The lawsuit calls for the freezing of funds and conditions imposed on federal grants to be declared unlawful, as well as for the Trump administration to pay Harvard's costs. Coming up, the US slashing foreign aid funding risks global humanitarian efforts. Stay with us. The Malaysian Armed Forces, also known as MAF, operated field hospital known as the HMM, which began operations on Monday in Myanmar's Sagaing district, received a steady stream of patients from surrounding areas. The MAF headquarters said in a statement that through the humanitarian aid operation, also known as Operation Starlight 3, the Level 2 field hospital is equipped with 20 beds and wards, operation rooms, intensive care units, radiology unit, laboratories, as well as offering 2 specialist facilities, namely general surgery and orthopedics. On its first day of operation, the Operation Starlight 3 team successfully performed its first surgery at 10:30 a.m. local time. It added that the HMM is capable of carrying out various forms of critical treatments, including surgical procedures and comprehensive patient care, including performing 2 surgeries simultaneously at any one time. In addition, the field hospital provides outpatient clinic services and is expected to receive about 80 to 100 outpatients from the surrounding areas. On the 18th of April, Malaysia sent the MAF medical team to Myanmar to carry out the humanitarian aid operation called Operation Starlight 3 following the devastating earthquake on the 28th of March. China and Indonesia on Monday celebrated the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations and commemorated the 70th anniversary of the Asian-African Conference. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Defense Minister Dong Jun attended the celebratory event in Beijing, along with Indonesian Foreign Minister Sugiono and Defense Minister Sejafri Sejamsodin. Wang said China stands ready to work with Indonesia to jointly promote the 5 principles of peace, coexistence, and the Bandung spirit, and push for the Global South to seek great strength through solidarity. He also noted that since the establishment of diplomatic ties 75 years ago, the traditional friendship between the 2 countries has withstood the test of time and grown stronger. Meanwhile, Sugiono stressed that in a world fraught with uncertainties, greater unity between the 2 countries is needed more than ever before. China and Indonesia held the first ministerial meeting of joint foreign and defense ministerial dialogue in the Chinese capital on Monday. The United States slashing foreign aid risks piling pressure on already acute humanitarian crisis across the globe, a World Health Organization official said recently, also warning against withdrawing from the UN agency. Since taking office in January, President Donald Trump has effectively frozen foreign aid funding, moved to dismantle the US Agency for International Development, also known as USAID, and other programs, and announced plans to leave the WHO. According to Hanan Balki, the WHO's regional director for the Eastern Mediterranean, Washington, who had long been the WHO's biggest donor, did not pay its 2024 dues, and it remains unclear if the United States will meet its membership obligations for 2025. The agency, already facing a gaping deficit this year, has proposed shrinking its budget by a fifth, likely reducing its reach and workforce.
The WHO, with its partners, have a significant role in sustaining healthcare systems, rehabilitation of healthcare systems, emergency medical team training and dispatching, pre-placement of trauma kits. Many of these programs have now stopped or are not going to be able to continue. We work significantly to identify emerging and re-emerging pathogens, to keep the Sudanese safe, but also to keep the rest of the world safe. So it will impact our ability to continue to do surveillance, detection of diseases.
The funding cuts will likely hinder the ability to continue delivering robust aid to communities in desperate need of care. Balkhi cited the ongoing conflicts in Gaza, Sudan and Yemen as areas where healthcare institutions and aid programs were already under pressure before the funding shake-ups. More than 14,000 Filipino and American soldiers kicked off annual military exercises on Monday at an opening ceremony where a full battle test between treaty allies was on the cards in the face of security concerns in the region, including tensions in the South China Sea. The annual Balikatan, or shoulder to shoulder in Tagalog, drills will run for 3 weeks until the 9th of May, showcasing an array of US weapons that include the Nemesis anti-ship missile system and HIMARS rocket launchers. Exercises include defending against missile threats, preventing invasions at sea, and sinking a decommissioned Philippine Navy vessel in a maritime strike test.
Our operations span complex joint endeavors, including missile defense, counter-landing live fires, and maritime strike capabilities, alongside humanitarian efforts and infrastructure projects that directly benefit our local communities.
Additionally, United States Marine Corps Pacific Commander James Glynn described Balikatan exercise as a commitment and promise to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. The exercise this year comes as regional tensions simmer in Asia over China's actions in the South China Sea and Taiwan. Outside the Philippines military headquarters on Monday, however, dozens of activists held a protest condemning the joint exercises, holding placards containing slogans and burning a US flag. The World Economic Forum, also known as the WEF, said on Monday Klaus Schwab, its founder, stepped down from the chairmanship and his position on the board of the WEF, also known as the Davos Summit. Schwab said in a statement as he entered his 88th year, he decided to step down from the position of chair and as a member of the board of trustees with immediate effect. The board unanimously appointed Vice Chairman Peter Brabeck Letmathe as Chairman AD Interim. It also established a search committee for the selection of a future chair. The statement mentioned the board acknowledged the outstanding achievements of the retired chairman and founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. It added Schwab created the leading global platform for dialogue and progress, and the board expressed its gratitude for his 55 years of relentless leadership at the helm of the forum. In May 2024, Schwab announced that he was stepping back from his executive role. Schwab founded the World Economic Forum in 1971, and the forum has held its annual meetings in Davos, Switzerland, and in other locations occasionally ever since. 13 of the world's 20 most polluted cities are in India, according to the World Air Quality Report 2024 by Swiss air technology firm IQ Air. Bernihat, a small but heavily industrialized town in Meghalaya, tops the list, with the locals are battling with respiratory and skin issues. 2-year-old Sumaya Ansari from Bernihat was hospitalized in March after struggling with breathing issues for several days and required oxygen support. Bernihat is home to many residents like Sumaya who are afflicted with illnesses that doctors say are potentially linked to high pollution levels. Residents have lamented that the toxic air causes not only respiratory issues but also skin rashes and eye irritation. Additionally, pollution has restricted daily activities, including drying laundry outdoors. Farmers have also reported crop damage due to poor air quality. Swiss air quality watchdog IQ Air reported Bernihat's 2024 PM 2.5 average at 128.2 micrograms per cubic meter, more than 25 times the WHO's recommended level. Government data reports shown the number of respiratory infection cases in the region rising to 3,681 in 2024. 4 from 2,082 in 2022. With around 80 industries, many of which are highly polluting, Bayanihan's problem is compounded by factors like heavy vehicle emissions and its bowl-shaped topography. The local authorities confirmed on Monday morning a major wildfire has engulfed approximately 400 hectares of Berita National Park in northeastern Poland. The fire, which began Sunday afternoon at the border of the Augustau and Mąki counties in Podlaski province, has spread rapidly despite ongoing firefighting efforts. On Monday, roughly 180 firefighters, supported by forest services, park rangers and soldiers, are currently battling the blaze. Overnight, drones were deployed to monitor the situation, and additional firefighting aircraft, including helicopters, resumed operations to tackle the fire in the remote and hard-to-reach areas. The Government Centre for Security has issued emergency alerts for residents of the Augusto, Gragiewo and Mąki regions, advising them to stay clear of the affected areas and follow the guidance of emergency services. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. No casualties have been reported. Berita National Park, renowned for its vast marshes and unique biodiversity, is one of Poland's most ecologically significant protected areas. In sports, Nottingham Forest beat Tottenham 2-1, pushing for Champions League spot. Stay tuned. But before that story, following the news of the Pope's death, several bodies from the sporting world, including major Serie A and La Liga teams, paid their tributes. Meanwhile, Serie A postponed all of Monday's fixtures as a sign of respect to the Pope's passing. The fixtures have all been rescheduled for 4:30 p.m. local time on Wednesday, with the Coppa Italia semi-final second leg between Inter Milan and AC Milan kicking off at 7 p.m. local time as originally scheduled. The president of Italy's National Olympic Committee, Giovanni Malago, invites the national sports federations, the associated sports disciplines and the sports promotion bodies to postpone all sporting fixtures scheduled for Monday. He also called for athletes to observe a minute's silence in the competitive events scheduled in Italy for the rest of the week to mourn the death of the Holy Father Francis and honour his memory. Nottingham Forest beat struggling Tottenham 2-1 on Monday, bouncing back from 2 defeats to strengthen their push for a Champions League spot. Forest came into the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 6th spot in the table after losses to Aston Villa and Everton. Nuno Espirito Santo's visitors took the lead in the 5th minute following a corner when Anderson's deflected shot beat Guglielmo Vicario. Forest's Chris Wood had the ball in the net 5 minutes later, but it was ruled out by VAR for offside. However, the New Zealander doubled Forest's lead in the 16th minute, nodding a cross from Anthony Elenga past Vicario. Leaders Liverpool have one hand on the Premier League title and Arsenal are likely to finish second. But behind them, the competition is fierce for the top 5 places that will guarantee qualification for the Champions League next season. Just 3 points separate Forest from Aston Villa in 7th spot, with 5 games remaining for all the contenders. Spurs dominated possession and had more shots on goal, but provided little threat. Onto the Saudi Pro League. Al Ittihad moved 6 points clear at the top of the table after coming from behind to beat Al Ittifaq 3-2. As title rivals, Al Hilal were held to a 2-2 draw by Al Shabab on Monday. Al Ittihad bounced back from losing 2-0 to Al Fateh in their previous match to move up to 68 points with 5 games remaining. Al-Ittifaq scored first after 5 minutes when Vitinho had a powerful shot deflected into the net. But Al-Ittihad equalized 6 minutes later when a low cross from Karim Benzema found Danilo Pereira, who slotted it home from close range. Benzema took matters into his own hands to score their second goal 10 minutes before half-time, when he capitalized on a defensive error to go one-on-one with the keeper and score easily. Husam Ayaoua made it 3-1 for Al-Ittihad just before the interval after a low cross from Musa Diaby. Chances were limited in the second half, but the game became nervy in the closing minutes as Al-Ittifaq pulled one back after an own goal from Danilo 7 minutes before full time. Al-Hilal had reduced the gap at the top to 4 points last week, but their hopes of retaining their title are now hanging by a thread. Barca coach Hansi Flick announced on Monday Marc-Andre ter Stegen was ready to come back after a long-term injury. After almost 7 months sidelined due to a rupture of the patellar tendon in his right knee, Flick said the German goalkeeper is ready to come back to the pitch.
He's ready. He's ready, and we have to speak about that what we want to do. So I will speak with him. So we have to wait, and we have to decide when it's good to come back.
The good news was partially overshadowed by reports from Spanish media saying that Robert Lewandowski might be sidelined for 3 weeks. During a news conference ahead of Barca's league match against Mallorca, Flick declined to provide details on the expected duration of the Polish striker's absence. Lewandowski is the leading scorer in La Liga this season with 25 goals, 3 more than Real Madrid's Kylian Mbappe. When questioned about the reaction of some players who did not feature in the match against Celta de Vigo over the weekend, Flick expressed his disapproval of their behavior and expressed the importance of prioritizing the team's overall success. Barca, who lead La Liga with 73 points, play 7th place Mallorca at home on Tuesday. Over in tennis, unseeded Yelena Ostapenko crushed world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka 6-4, 6-1 on Monday to win the clay court title in Stuttgart for her first singles trophy of the year. Sabalenka was no match for her opponent's fierce baseline power, while also struggling with her first serve. In her first clay court tournament since last year's French Open, the Belarusian was broken in the very first game. World number 24, Ostapenko, who also ousted world number 2 Iga Swiatek of Poland in the quarterfinals, earned another 3 break points at 4-2, but could not convert any of them, with the Belarusian hanging on. Sabalenka finally carved out her first break, only to be broken straight back before Ostapenko clinched the first set. In the second set, the pair traded early breaks, but the Latvian powered through, winning 16 of 18 points to break Sabalenka twice and race to a 5-1 lead. Another erratic Sabalenka service game handed Ostapenko 2 match points and made sure of her first singles title when she fired a sensational cross-court forehand winner on a second serve. And that wraps up our bulletin this afternoon. In our top story, Pope Francis's death sparks global mourning. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM for more. Alternatively, you can stream us online at RTM Click's website and mobile app. Till then, I'm Daryl Baptist. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Goodbye for now.